This video could be considered controversial if read in a certain way. I've managed to annoy an awful lot of people with this series so far, and I'm rather surprised at the number of people who have taken such powerful umbrage at this series of videos. I think a lot of people think that I'm making a case for theism, when I certainly am not. What I'm doing is I'm just pointing out the flaws in a lot of, or what I see as flaws in a lot of the atheist discourse. This one I might be skating very close to the edge indeed, but here goes. The 19th century Hindu saint Ramakrishna of Calcutta once had a vision. He was meditating by the Ganges River when he noticed he had a vision of this beautiful young, very nubile, very fertile, fecund-looking woman coming out of the Ganges, climbing up the stairs towards him. He noticed, as she climbed up, that her belly swelled up and she became pregnant. And then she sat down, and right there in front of him, she gave birth to a beautiful little baby. And she cleaned the baby off. She sat the baby down in front of her, cleaned the baby off, and caressed it, and suckled the baby. It was a very easy birth. And yet, as she suckled the baby, she underwent yet another transformation, where she became this ravening, vicious-looking creature that ate the child alive. Now, of course, what Ramakrishna saw was time itself, Mother Kali, his favorite deity. The Hindu attitude, or the Eastern attitude towards death, is perhaps one of the most shocking, for its frankness, of all the Eastern beliefs. It does, to me at least, seem that, in the Eastern view of things, in the Hindu view of things especially, more than anywhere else, death really is just seen as a nasty moment that'll soon be over. There are parallels to this in the Western tradition. This view of death as just a transformation, a painful transformation, or an unpleasant, at least, transformation, where we're just changing from one thing into another. Or we are leaving this world, and all the fear and pain that we feel is just our own illusions and attachments. In the movie Jacob's Ladder, a character played by Danny Aiello, who's sort of an angel in that movie. It's a very good movie about the subject of death, if you ask me. One of the best that Hollywood's ever made. He gives a speech to the main character in the movie, played by Tim Robbins. He says, Eckhart, referring to the 14th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart saw hell too. He said, the only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of life. Your memories, your attachments. Hell burns that all away. But they're not punishing you, he said. They're freeing your soul. So if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth. One of the interesting things that I've noted about Western atheists in general is they seem to, just as sort of a reaction against the theistic insistence on an afterlife, come up with their own insistence that there is no afterlife. I would say that we don't really know if there's an afterlife or not. We don't really know what consciousness is. It's very obvious to us that the body dies at death. But does consciousness go? Does awareness go? We don't know, because we don't know where it comes from. We don't know where it goes. In this, me and Mr. Dawkins are in agreement. He says, why should I fear what comes after death when I don't fear what came before death? Well, okay, that's fair ball. I agree with him there. But since we don't know what came before death and we don't know what comes after death, why do we think it's just poof, lights out? We don't know. So that's why I bring the idea of Kali into it. I think that a lot of people become atheists because of the terrible teachings that a lot of theistic faiths have about hell and the afterlife. They think that how can one possibly believe in a God that you can that will condemn you for all eternity, that will give you a sinful nature and then condemn you for all eternity for acting upon it? Well, I think that's just basically the short-sightedness, or perhaps the bad metaphors of the Abrahamic religious tradition. The Hindus always or tend to equate death with Lord Shiva or Kali. And what Shiva is known as is the completer, and Kali is known as the mother. Death, metaphorically speaking, is simply the mother, the universe itself, drawing each of us, or at least our bodies, perhaps even our souls, back into herself. It's not really something to be feared. It looks frightening because she's taking everything away that we've built up in this life. Just like that. Boom. Gone. It looks frightening, but again, in Jacob's ladder, that's revealed to be just our own attachments to this life. That fear of death is simply an error. It's simply putting too much emphasis on this very life. When you take that attitude and you sort of put it on a macrocosmic, or I shouldn't say macrocosmic, but macro-terran, i.e. the entirety of human history, if you see death that way, what evil things have really happened? To invoke Godson, what was really so horrible about the Holocaust, for example, when all that death is a transformation? 6 million innocent people were butchered for having committed no crime whatsoever. But from a God's eye point of view, or from the point of view of eternity, if you don't like saying God, all that was happening was they were going back where they were going to go anyway, in a very short period of time. So even the worst excesses that we can visit upon each other on this earth really aren't really all that terrifying in the grand scheme of things. No matter what I do to somebody, I can't do anything that's not going to happen to them in due course. It's all in how we relate to it. It's our fears. It's our desires to stay attached to this reality. We become Howard Hughes when we get too attached to this reality. We've built up this great big attachment to life and all the things that we've built up in this life, and the Grim Reaper is going to come and take that from us, and that makes us angry, afraid, and attached and resentful. Seen in that light, death itself, Mother Kali, really isn't that bad. The Hindus always insist that Kali actually is a good goddess. She's wildly misunderstood in the West. She only looks terrified to those who can't understand that what she is perfectly and totally natural. In the subject of death, I think that atheists in general fall short. Just because there's some silly religious teachings out there, or the teachings that seem silly, that there's heaven and hell after life, and that it can be explained in very infantile ways, it's not logical to therefore conclude that if one is an atheist, one believes that there is nothing after death and that it's just the end of everything, the end of consciousness. We don't know. And the fear, I think, comes from over-attachment to this life. We all know we're going to die. We all know that everything that we ever do will be undone. What's so terrible about that at the end of the day? When we ourselves, our consciousness, our being, our awareness, might not be undone at all. We don't know. Thank you.